Enviaste nada para o Face? Vamos.
Emmanuel, won't you just give me sharing rights, please? Thank you. Good evening, everybody. We're going to start the session in a few minutes, so we'll just give all the latecomers a chance just to join. Gavin, are you on the call? Just unmute yourself. I think we're muting everybody, so just unmute yourself if you're on the call.
I'm here.
Cool, thanks. Okay, oh, there you are, cool. So let me just see how many people are on. So there's just people coming, so we'll give him another few minutes. The glass is the intelligent look, Gav.
Yeah, it's time to fool people, you know. So, sign of old age.
The arm is too short.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, I think we've got 62 people on, so let's
The wrong wallpaper.
So good evening, everybody. Tonight's session, I'm very excited to talk a little bit about about the science of riding the Munga. We're talking about, and I'll introduce Gavin shortly. We're going to talk about, various strategies. We're going to talk about, what you really want to do or what you're physically capable of doing, and, a reality check. So Gavin, is joining us tonight. He's a biokineticist. As a Dutchie, whenever I try to type it, I can never type it right. There's also never, spell check for that. So that is always very interesting. But Gavin has completed 5 mangas. He's won the free challenge. He understands the psychic and the physiological effects of your body of sleep deprivation. He understands what to do, when it's heat, etc. Gavin is also, a coach for us on the Munga, and he helps, quite a few people, on the journey, from people that is racing to people that is actually merely just finishing. And I think that is the exciting, journey that we all got involved with among us, is to help others and see the joy and experience the joy when people finish. So Gav, thanks for joining us. And so Gavin is going to start, and he's just going to share his knowledge about sleep deprivation, specifically talking about what to do in heat, how to condition yourself, and just give you general guidance of, do's and don'ts. And then I'm going to go over, talk about strategies. Gavin is going to chip in whenever. And we're going to just talk about the psychic of the race. And Alex is going to join us and also give some input. And we're going to have Q&A, questions and answers. So please just mute yourselves. if you want to ask a question during the presentation or actually the discussion, feel free to stop us at any time, and the session is recorded. So yeah, just shoot. So Gavin, over to you.
Thanks, Jacques. Yeah, quite exciting to be involved once again, and especially on this 10th anniversary of the Munga. And I think Munga riders are known for the generosity in sharing knowledge, and it's a community where there's no secrets, and guys are very willing to share different tips and stuff. And that's what I'd like to do today, is just to share stuff that you've picked up just from doing the Munga 5 times and being involved with it a lot of other times and coaching guys on it, and just to hand out some advice and tips. Some of it's researched. We did some intensive research when I coached Alex for the Freedom Challenge on the scientific aspects of sleep deprivation, but I don't think that's really applicable to those guys in the general field. But I'll just gloss over some of that stuff. We're not trying to go non-stop with 15-minute or 10-minute power naps. We're going to go with a more consistent approach. And I think I'll just kick off with starting with the nature of the race. And it's just an assault on all your being, I suppose, physical, mental. And the best way for you to take control of these elements, the weather, the surface, and the long distance. I mean, the heat that comes at you from every angle, the weather, the wind, and then the surfaces. And so you've got to contend with those 3 things. And the best way to take control of this sort of stuff is to apply yourself physically. So prepare yourself as best you can physiologically. So that it entails riding in similar conditions without necessarily fatiguing yourself. So do your long rides, but don't go and overdo it in the heat. Try not to ride multi-day. Sorry. Yeah, so physiologically, I'll say your riding preparation needs to be up there. You need to do some strength, and you need to work on your contact points. So your hands, your seat, your neck, and your feet. And those are the 4 biggest areas where riders come unstuck. I've never really heard of a rider say to me that I pulled out of the Munga because I wasn't fit enough. The guys pull out because they're sore, and they're mentally drained, and they just can't do it. So a good strength program will counteract that, especially upper body. The corrugations take a tremendous toll on your upper body, on your biceps, your elbows, your shoulders, your neck. So strength program, upper body. The Munga is a long time on the saddle, even in terms of Freedom Challenge. Freedom Challenge, you're on and off the bike, you're carrying the bike, you're walking up portages, but the Munga are long slogs. If you look perhaps at your race document, and I don't know if you've released that sort of stuff yet, but you look at the distances between the water points, and if you realistically aiming at about a 14k an hour, I would say around about 14 k's an hour for the average rider. Sometimes slower, you can be going at 6 k's an hour sometimes, walking into the wind. But if you look at the 14 k's an hour, and you have to do 60 k's or 70 k's, sometimes a 90k stretch between water points, then there's a long time out there. So you've got to be mentally prepared just for a hard slog. So your riding and all that is all appropriate in your strength program. But I think generally you've got to set off with a sense of adventure and to know that things might not, within the first 60 k's, everything could fall apart. Your water bottles will fall off. You might be into a 60k an hour block headwind, but you have to have the mental flexibility to handle what's coming at you. Whatever comes through that door on that day, you've got to be able to handle. And I don't know the exact stats, but I reckon 60% of the oaks who pull out before 100 k's on that first day. I think most of the oaks are out. I mean, in 2016, 17, 18, they're all out at the 60k mark, the first water point. Guys are sitting there under the trees like Springbok, waiting to get.
100%, Gav. And I think we do have some of those stats, but I think, and Alex can also jump in, but definitely about 60% of all the people that pull out definitely pull out, before Bridgetown, and I would probably split it in half between before Bridgetown and before Race Village 1 van der Kloof. But absolutely, it's the highest amount.
Yeah, so I mean, the heat is a thing, but the combination of everything, and the stress and your heightened anxiety levels because of what you're expecting has all got something to play. But you just need to even like to just get off your bike at some point. If you're taking a bit of stress, sit down under a tree, collect yourself, and just move on. You've got to keep moving on, moving on. So I think apart from the physical stuff, I think mentally you have to be prepared to keep going. And if you think about it, 5 days is actually quite a long time. I mean, there are times, it is a tough race, and one of the challenges, or one of the banana peels Alex always has thrown in is that you start at 12 o'clock on the Wednesday. So that throws a curveball of where do you sleep? Because you've got to do 224 Ks to Van der Kloof, and starting at 12. So your natural sleep patterns are thrown out. So that's where I want to jump in, just as a broad view of strategy. So I would suggest that you do at least one night of through the night to regain your sleep pattern on the following day. So you would go through to Van der Kloof, perhaps have a dinner, a power nap, and then get going as quickly as possible, because you want to get to Bridgetown the following day at around 8 would be ideal, and then you can settle down into your natural sleep patterns, take a 5-hour stop at Bridgetown, and then, or 5 to 6 hour, then leave there early morning. Then you're starting to ride earlier in the morning when it's cooler, and then you can take advantage of water points if you really need to sleep along the way. But so from a general strategy, I would say you need to get to Bridgetown relatively quickly. When I say quickly, I mean without wasting time. That doesn't mean riding fast, but being efficient in the way you move. One of the vital things is not to waste time at water points. A water point is a water point. Just get your stuff, sit down, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You got to try and be out of there without rushing. I would say guys we will come to that later. Guys are on a 3-day plan, 15 minutes max at a water point. Guys are on a 4-day plan. You could afford 30 minutes. And then I wouldn't stay longer than an hour unless you really have to sleep there if you're tired. But the more time you spend at a water point, the less time you have at a race village. And the race villages are where you can maximize your rest. I would say you stop 5 to 6 hours at a race village. My ideal stop is a 5-hour stop where you take half an hour admin in the front, 4 hours sleep, and then half an hour admin to get going again. And you'll be surprised how quick that half an hour can be. But if you're really efficient, so when I mean half an hour admin, I mean when you get into the race village, you plug in your stuff, you charge your GPS, your lights, and everything. You grab a shower, have a shower, get straight into bed. When you're in that bed, you're in there for 4 hours. Regardless of whether you're sleeping or not, try and stay there, because you're still resting your legs. Your system is still recovering. Your heart rate's coming down. Your system has changed from supplying energy to your muscles. Now your liver can start getting the processes of glycogen and carbohydrate stores back into your blood. And then that rest, and off your feet, off your ass, in your bed, because it's a good place to be. Also time to prep your kit. Maybe wash your shorts. That's very important. Reapply chamois cream. Try and walk around in a pair of airy pants or just with a towel on to air out your bits. And then so that's your admin. Admin is not sitting around talking shit to the oaks at the race village. You need to do your admin. Plug in your stuff, get a shower, rehydrate, and get into bed. And then when you wake up, same story. Eat, drink, collect your stuff, plug your stuff in, and go. And then that's the efficient stop, without rushing. Then you can get adventurous later on down the line if you pushed for time, or you want to start chasing something, you're feeling good after Sutherland, then you can perhaps stop less. But I would say a good strategy would be to stop 5 hours Bridgetown, Loxton, Sutherland, and then go home from there. But yeah, so it's a general strategy as such, planning how fast you're going to ride, what time you're going to get there, all those details will all dissipate into the dust of a on the way to Bridgetown as everything comes crashing down. I call it the cascading effect of the Munga, where things just, as soon as you leave that parking lot, all your plans just dissipate into the dust. But have a general principle of things you can control. So like the time at a water point, what you eat, how much you're going to drink. Don't ever leave a water point or a race village with a half topped up water bottle, or you think you're going to get somewhere. You have to be full of water all the time. I think that's the vital, and it doesn't necessarily have to be carb drinks or electrolytes. Water is the single most important facet to that. And so use every water point. Whatever you do, don't skip the first water point. It's 60 Ks. There have been guys that have done that before, and then it's the end of the story, eh? So yeah, surface, long distances. In a similar vein, you can talk about the cascading effect of sleep deprivation. So the longer you ride and the tireder you get, the sleep deprivation will eventually have an effect on your power output, which has a direct impact on the speed that you're riding. So the tireder you get, the less power output, and the slower you go. And this is not necessarily, so this is the technical aspect that we researched with Alex. It's not necessarily the fatigue that's causing you to go slower. There is an effect on sleep deprivation on insulin resistance in your muscles. And it's been found that corporate guys who work long hours and suffer chronic sleep deprivation are much more likely to get diabetes. And we came upon this research, and they found that sleep deprivation makes your muscles insulin resistant, which means that the insulin is used to absorb glucose into your muscles. So the longer you go sleep deprived, it's not necessarily the fatigue that's making you less powerful. It's the fact that your muscles can't absorb carbohydrates into them and use the fuel. So there's a Goldilocks zone where you've got to try and find your specific Goldilocks zone where your fatigue is matching your power output. And as soon as you find that your power is dropping drastically, so let's say you can't handle 10 Ks an hour anymore, you're dropping down to 6 and there's no wind and it's just a complete, and you're falling asleep every 15 minutes, you've got to get off the bike and have a power nap, you're falling off the bike, you're hallucinating, then it's probably better to sit down and compose yourself and have a sleep. If you're close to a water point or a race village, I would suggest you take a power nap, 15 minutes, get up. Normally, if you hit the floor, you'll fall asleep very quickly. You'll wake up 10 to 15 minutes later, and when you wake up, it's ready to go. You'll find that you've charged yourself for about 2 or 3 hours. And guys can continually do this 15-minute power nap. But there are other options. The REM cycle and the sleep cycles go from the 15 minutes, 45 minutes, 1.5 hours or longer. So ideally, you've either got to be power napping for an hour or less, or when you sleep, you've got to sleep for 1.5 hours or more, up to 3 hours to get 2 full cycles of your REM cycle. So if you're close to a water point, do your 15-minute power nap, push on through to the water point, and then sleep for more than 1.5 hours, and then you should be topped up. You can't continually push and push, and there are some guys that can go, but we've seen that in freedom as well. You get to a certain point where your traveling speed is not it's not conducive to going anywhere. You may as well be sleeping. And I had some contact with Kevin a while back, Kevin Benkenstein, just before he won his Munga, and I think we came up with a good mantra, is that trust in your legs when you've slept. So you got to sleep early in the race and trust that your legs are going to come in the last bit of the race. And that's exactly what happened. he had the mental stillness to lie down for a few hours and not worry about guys riding away from him, and know that when he woke up, that his legs would catch those guys. And that's exactly what happened, is that he trusted in his sleep strategy. And a lot of guys, especially in the 3-day and that, they're anxious when they go to sleep because they think they're wasting time. And then they have good sleep. You got to clear your mind to sleep. So that's why I like that half an hour admin before the 4 hours sleep. It helps you to clear your mind a little bit. Sit down, get your heart rate down, relax while you're eating, take in your fluids, reset your clock, then go and sleep. It's no use rushing into bed straight off the bike. You're going to lie there for 45 minutes, tossing and turning. So I would say have that mental strategy. Going into a race village where you know you're going to be spending 5 hours, I would say the last 5Ks, eat everything on your bike. Don't race into the race village. Drop your cadence. Mentally prepare yourself to stop. Don't charge in the last 5 minutes. You're not going to make up any more time than what you already lost or you think you've lost. You're not going as slow as you probably are. But relax that last 5Ks into the race village. Get there calm. Do your stuff. Do your admin. There's another half an hour to settle down, and then have your sleep, and then continue. Yeah, so that's the carbohydrate and the insulin resistance in your muscles from the sleep deprivation, and the Goldilocks zone of where you have to find your balance of fatigue and speed. And then yeah, just the mental prep, and then an overall. So maybe just jot down something before you start the race, and just go through it mentally in terms of your strategy. So these are not tactics of racing or anything. The strategy would be to get to Britstown. But in doing so, how are we going to best achieve that? How are we going to be as efficient as possible? Then you can write down to yourself on your arm or whatever you want. So when you're in the race, 15 minutes, water point, 5 hours, race village. And you go through all these little checks. When you get to the race village, what do you do first? Plug in your GPS, plug in your lights, lube your chain, fill your water bottles, fill your camel pack, do all that stuff so that when you can either sleep longer or you admin before you leave is less. So it's no use cleaning your water bottles and trying to fill everything once you've woken up. Now you got to get out. So do all that sort of stuff while it's still present. The race village guys are very helpful. I know Jack was always very helpful at Britstown, taking over all the admin, and so take advantage of that, and mark your batteries for your lights or whatever very clearly, because there are some DMR oaks that just ride off with your battery or some other oaks GPS or something. So keep everything neat and tidy. And there are very lack of charging stations, so take advantage of that. Yeah, so it's just about being efficient. And the 3-day is a tough one, but I've known Leon Erasmus and Janine Stewart. They rode 3 days and they slept 5 hours in Britstown and 5 hours in Sutherland. So that it's doable on a 10-hour sleep. Then I would just, if you're going to do the 4-day, you just add another 5 hour at somewhere Loxton. A 5-day, then you can afford 4 5-hour stops. But stick to I would say try and stick to the 5-hour plan, 30-minute admin, 4 hours sleep, 30-minute admin. Sleep cycles we've covered. The Munga, there's only 3 things that you should actually be doing. That's riding, sleeping, and fueling. So if you're not on the bike, you should be eating, drinking, or sleeping. If you're going to be doing anything else, chatting, caring, whatever, like Yochi, you're going to be losing time. I wouldn't attempt a sub 3. I mean, it's going to be difficult. I would not say I wouldn't attempt it, but if you haven't done a few Mungas already and you haven't been able to push and know what the conditions are, a sub 3 on your first ride or your second ride is actually quite a...
Sorry to interrupt, but there's those stats that you just spoke about, Janine and Conrad of 2018 for sub 3 days.
Yeah, that's it.
So total stop time for Janine was 9 hours and 50 minutes, and for Conrad 7 hours and 35 minutes although the average speed was exactly the same.
Yeah.
But that just gives you an idea, if you want to do a sub 3 day, how little you really have to stop.
Yeah. And as you can see, like 10 hours of stopping, if you do it efficiently, it's actually quite a bit there. But also the magic number there, number 15 k's an hour. That's the magic number. And if you want to finish the Munga, I would say Jane and myself had a very good strategy. We try to stick to 14 k's an hour, and that got us through to the end. And we had long stops at the race villages.
Yeah. Very cool.
So, but it's not how much you yach on the track; it's how efficiently you use your time off the bike. And another thing that I want to stress is that when you get on the bike after the race village, you shouldn't be stopping again for the next 30 to 40 Ks. So have a pee, have the right kit on. Don't change the jacket, the jersey, the gloves. Your socks are loose. You want to change a bottle. Don't faff for 30 Ks after the race village, because then you're just wasting time. Because then you're stopping here, stopping there. You're wasting 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. When you're riding, you must be riding. You must be doing everything on your bike. You mustn't stop to take your jersey off. You must stop to. It's like just a mission. If you're gonna stop for a pee, then eat something. Then take your jersey off and then put sunscreen on. So you're doing it all at once. Don't stop to take a pee, then you stop to eat something, and then you stop to put sunscreen on. You must do everything, compacted. I think, what else do you want me to cover there, Jack? I mean, covered it.
Yeah, just maybe just a little bit more about the heat and the cold when it's very hot or very cold.
Yeah. So the heat also, what I prefer to do is to cover up, because when you sweat and you blow and the wind blows, it covers you, it cools you down, but also you don't have that direct evaporation factor onto your skin. So if you've got a long sleeve shirt or arm sleeves, these skins for the sun, a buff is always very good. Something on your head, like something light, so you don't overheat. But I would try and avoid a lot of direct sunlight. I even use the compressed sport socks for my calves and that.
What
So
calves?
when I know calves, yeah, soup bones, my soup bones. Kevin calls them the funny socks. Yeah, no. So yeah, I try and cover up. The heat is actually often okay. It is a real factor, but often it can be a mental factor too. Don't look at your Garmin and keep reminding yourself how hot it is. It's hot, so you got to ride. Just in the word, don't turn around to your mate and say, "Shit, look, it's 46 degrees." I mean, so what? You know what? You're not the weatherman. You're not telling people what the weather is. And the most time, the direct heat the sunlight on your Garmin is giving you a 5 degree or 10 degrees more. If you see 56 degrees, well, so what? Just ride. You got to ride, no matter what. So, and if you stop, it's even worse, because then there's no wind. So, but the main thing is to sip and don't mistake. So, what I like to use is a buff over my mouth to stop that direct dry air and the dust coming into your lungs. That's another thing you have to watch out on the first 24 to 36 hours is the chest infection with the dust. And take some Blistex or lip ice for your nostrils and your nose, because the dry air can cause nosebleeds, as with Mark Harrison. Myself, I had like a 10-hour nosebleed along the way to the Tankwa Patstal. And Dane just remind me now, throat lozenges also. Need to take throat lozenges and Blistex, and it's also very good. Keeps you, and then also when it's very hot and you are sipping properly, like you're following a strategy of hydration, don't mistake a dry mouth for thirst. If you've just had 3 or 4 sips of water and you've swallowed the water and it's a good dose, you shouldn't be drinking again in the next 3 to 5 minutes again, because that's not thirst. That's just a dry mouth. So try and overcome the dry mouth with lozenges or a buff. So a buff takes a bit of getting used to, because it feels like you're too hot. But once that thing's wet with sweat, it really does cool you down, and it is a good.
Yeah, and it's also a good idea sometimes just to cut a buff in half so that your chest or that your throat is a little bit open, that when it's very hot, that your mouth is covered. So there's a lot of things you can do around that.
And then also, I know Mark Wilner made the mistake of having all carbs on his bike in 2018 as well. He had a carb drink, both bottles, and no pure water, thinking he would just top up at the water points, and he ended up pulling out as well eventually. But so water is the most important, and then electrolytes, and then carb drink in that order. Electrolytes uh, maintain the homeostasis in your cells, in your cellular hydration, so you don't suffer this dehydration, and it also helps with your gut hydration. A lot of guys complain about nausea, and this is often related to dehydration of your gut and the fact that there's so much happening. There's evaporation of your skin, there's sweating, there's physical exertion. Your body is 10 degrees, 15 degrees hotter than what it should be. But I mean, this is in terms of the environment. So often that's reflected in nausea, and the guys think they need to eat because they're nauseous, because they haven't eaten enough, then they're stressed and they eat too much. So you've got to just calm down. You've got to just look back in an objective way and say, look, I had breakfast. I've been eating my amount of food that I should be eating. I have been hydrating. I'm nauseous. Let me just sit down, relax. Whatever you do, try and avoid vomiting, because everything comes out and then you got to stick it all back in and you got to rest and wait. So if you're feeling nauseous, sit down, let it go. Just plug away. And if you're nauseous, don't chuck food down. Don't drink extra if you've just had, because you're just going to compound the problem. Most of the time, the guys are hydrating properly, and it's just a stress reaction to the severe environment. And just know that, like also Mark, I'll quote Mark again. He's always very good at these things. However cuck you're feeling now, in 2 or 3 hours, or in 5 hours time, the sun will be down. There'll be good times somewhere along the way. And another thing that I like to say is that very seldom does the Munga ever cut you, disqualify you because you've lost time. They're very generous with the time, the cut. I don't know how many oaks you've cut, but I reckon 95% of the guys that fall out.
It's only because he's fapping so much at Sutherland.
Or Danny. He's got timeshare now at the Sutherland Hotel. But yeah, most of the guys pull out themselves, and they just need to sleep. And
yeah, and then I think what you're saying there, Gav, is very important. So this year with the Ledur in Namibia, we had terrible, they call it east wind, and it was the wind directly from the desert. And we had a lot of people that pulled out, in the late afternoon, etc. Every single person that went into the night when it cooled down actually finished the grid. So it is sometimes just holding on for that 2-3 hours to get into a little bit cooler air of a night, and it will just change everything.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with a good walk either. So if you're feeling sore and your arse is sore, your hands are sore, you got to keep moving forward. Get off the bike and just do a bit of a walk. If you don't want to sit down, and you think you're wasting time, walk along the road. You'll take in the scenery a lot better. And as long as you're moving forward, there's no problem. You'll change the blood supply to your feet. You'll see you get these nerve. That's the other thing we must chat about. Positioning of your shoe on the cleats. You got to watch out for that terrible nerve pain that comes. So I would put the cleat as far back as possible. Some comfortable shoes that are not too narrow, and a nice pair of socks. And I would take 2 pairs of socks. I would take a thicker pair and then a slightly thinner pair, like the Munga socks we get. The Munga, that's a perfect pair of socks for the day. And then I like to change into a bit of a thicker pair, those Shimano socks for the night. And then just watch out there in Sutherland. It's always a bit chilly, and you don't want to get sick. So take a base layer, some sort of a small base layer, and a gilet, and maybe some long-fingered gloves. That also helps. And it's also very, very handy. If you take 2 or 3 buffs, you can always put an extra one on your head, one around your throat, and then you use it to warm yourself up. So, but I wouldn't go completely race snake prepared with no kit. I would go for something, because Jane and I, we went up into Sutherland there. It was 2 degrees going up that hill, and so it's cold there. It's very cold there, and especially when you're riding in the day. So it might not necessarily be be severely cold, but the temperature difference is significant. If you're riding in 45-degree heat and you're coming into southern and it's 10, I mean that your body temperature is your body's going to take a shock in the temperature difference. So it's a 35-degree difference now, and it's going to feel cold. So
Yeah.
and what I like to do is to take a little windbreaker, put it in the pocket, my back pocket, and then as soon as I get to a water point or to a race footage, I put that jacket on immediately. It stops those shakes. You get those bivaroses when you stand still for 5 minutes. You just stick that on quickly, have your chai, sit down, let your heart rate come up. 15 minutes later, you're out of the water point. So they, I mean,
100.
yeah.
No, cool. Gav, I'm gonna show a few OCD Jack Black stuff and so
Okay.
please jump in at any time. So Gavin spoke
I'm
about
just having my Namib sport.
awesome. So Gavin spoke about the science of it, and I'm just, if you want to feel better about yourself and really want to have deep empathy levels from me, phone me anytime and I'll tell you what you don't want to hear. But anyway, so what I've decided to do before I just show you quickly what is the stats from last year, just to give you some perspective of this race and what to expect, etc. So if you just look at, every year, how many people actually started, and, on average, 64% of the field, finished. But on average, 35% does not finish. The worst year that we ever had was in 2016, where only, 43% completed. It was heat. And 2019, where only 46% completed the race. But what I actually wanted to show you here was, if you look at the riders per year under 72 hours. Sorry, where did it go? In 2016, as you expect, smaller field, blah, blah, blah. But on average, 8 people a year finish in sub 72 hours. Now, I know that there's 50% of people that is on this call that say, I can, not on a riding average, but on an overall average, I can, ride at 15 kilometers an hour. I'm going to just share some knowledge with you on that. But, one person finished, in sub 72 hours, 2, 13, 16, the best weather year where 81% finished. And also, last year, 11 people finished, although it wasn't the best. It was good conditions, but, probably very similar to 2018. But anyway, there's the records, all those wonderful things. I'm not going to talk about that. If you look at people, and this is for me always interesting, how many people actually, have ridden the Munga, how many, has done it once, twice, 3 times. And this is just purely looking at, the overall numbers. 1,170, riders has done it over the 9 years, with always around 10% females versus males, and, and 730 overall finishes. But of those, 427 are unique people that's done multiple finishes. Okay. So this is always quite interesting to look, 62, 64, that's the finishing numbers. And then most finishes was 81%, as I said, in 2018 and 2022. The least 43 and 46 was in 2016 and 2019. The youngest finisher was 18 years old, and the oldest finisher was actually 69 and not 70. But that is just another stat. Why am I showing you this? So let's just quickly look at last year as well. And I mean, this is just to give you a quick heads up. I categorize it ladies. We didn't have ladies younger than 40, so that's why we started there. Jenny Close rode an immaculate race. She came 5th overall and 67 hours and 29 minutes. And then, the next lady was Nikki, the Tiger, Tungsten, Turbo Mania, 89 hours, etc., etc. And then if you look at the men, obviously, Driekus rode 47 hours, Tinus 50 hours, Willie Smith 56 hours, Pierre Lambert 66 hours. So these were all racing snakes, going very, very fast. But Peter Henderson and Aiden and Mike Chumley all came in, less than 70 hours. Trevor Case, third time, I think, but making in the top 10, 70 hours, etc., etc. And if you look at, Chris, that's also a bullet at 52, came in at, sub 70 hours, just to give you a high level view. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is what I've showed you later, is that if you think you're going to ride a 72 hours, and there's 50% of you thinking that you're going to ride 72 hours, rest assured that if you're in the top 10, you are most likely going to ride a sub 72 hours. And if that doesn't scare you, maybe just re-strategize and think if you really can do 72 hours. I want to show you just a high level quickly. This was my plans in 2019, and I just want to show you how you can overanalyze something very, very, very quickly. So I plan to do a sub 72 hours. The weather turned against us, and unfortunately, when I got to Sutherland, the plan was out of the window. But I want to show you the principles. So my moving time planning was 60 hours. Stopping between 9 and 11 hours. Average speed, the lap speed, this is not, average speed was 15 hours. And then moving speed was probably around 60. It's basically between 17 and 18. And you have to cover about 360 kilometers a day. Anyway, I'm showing you this just to show you what not to do. Okay. So I've categorized this to say, from the start to there's water on 33 kilometers of a good farmer, water point 1, the Coke versus Steenmekaar, there used to be Coke, water point 2, Race Village 1, what is for me, easier and more difficult, and what time you're getting in, and blah, 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 blah. So this is completely over-analyzing it, and I'm saying don't do it. Doesn't matter if you ride a 3-day or 4-day or 5-day, okay? Now, just to confuse you a little bit more, I've worked out, I'm going to, if you average at 23 hours, on the third day, what time exactly, what time I'm going to be, and what time I'm going to have a sandwich, and what time I'm going to be at Van der Kloof, and what's the earliest that I'm going to be there, and the latest. This is over-analyzing it to the extent that you don't want to know. I'm going to show you now, quick, once I've set the scene, just what is the only thing that you need to look at. Stop doing this, what I've done, because the first time that you miss one of your targets times, it's almost impossible to make it up. The only way you can make it up, is by sleeping an hour less, and then, you deteriorate on another level. So again, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I just want to show you what not to do. Okay. Sorry, I just want to build this slide, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So have a plan A, have a plan B, have a plan C. So what you see here is this is what I've done with the previous 2 years I've ridden, and saying, how to basically, plan it. Now, this is all crap, and please don't do it. I'm sure the OCD people has already done it, and I can share it with you, but I'm going to show you a much simpler way of what to do. So let me just put this calculator on quickly.
But you will sell those templates for somebody who really wants.
Yeah, somebody that really wants to get confused. Okay, so this I'm going to share with you. This, if you unhide this columns, you'll see all those detail, and it will confuse the living daylights out of you. Okay, but if you just quickly go into this calculator, then you say basically 12 hours. Okay, 12 kilometers an hour, and let's say 11. Okay, then you're not going to make it. Let's say 12. So it's 11 and a half. So if you want to be Mr. Vernon Rutman and you want to come in, just before the end, then you follow this strategy. So what I've done here, and I'll share with everybody afterwards. You basically put your average kilometer speed in there. You decide where you want to sleep, how long you want to sleep, stop, So I've just said water point 1, 15 minutes, water point 2, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes. Sleep at Bridgetown, sleep there. Sorry, 30 minutes stop, 4 hours, 2 hours. Okay. You can change this. You can say, 0 there, and it just means that you earlier in. So what I'm trying to do here with this plan is basically showing you just, look at the time that you need to leave the water point, because that is critical. If you just have a straight line and say, for argument's sake, we make all of this 0. So if you just make it 0, at 11, 11 kilometers an hour, whatever time it might be. And I'll just update this a little bit. You need to be out of Van der Kloof at 8 o'clock on the Thursday, 8 o'clock the morning of Thursday. So if you leave there at 3 o'clock, then you know that you basically have 5 hours to spare, and you don't have to worry about any of this other stuff. The only thing that I would do if I were you is I would have this, what is the time that you're leaving from the water point? So that you know that you've got one calculation to make. If you, say you leave at 3 o'clock and the cutoff is, or not the cutoff, your time that on this straight line calculation is basically, 8, you've banked 5 hours. And, hopefully at the same speed, you can, bank it somewhere and sleep. And because, the further you go on, the more time you lose by riding slower, by sleep deprivation, by faffing too long at a water point, etc. So my 2 cents for you guys is just, only look at this time that you basically, change this, put in, the times that you want to stop at the water points. I'm also just going to share one more thing with you. So if you're going to do a 3-day and even a 4-day strategy, if you, so on this, so let's just make it a little bit faster here. So let's say on 14, 14 kilometers an hour, it doesn't necessarily make sense, to go and stop at Bridgetown. Sorry, where's that one? No, this doesn't look right. But anyway, so the first 36 hours are really important. If we used to sleep at night. So don't think that you're going to ride, that you're going to sleep more during the day and ride more during the night, because you are clever Trevor, Wessel van der Merwe, no offense, Wessel, but you're going to, ride during the night and sleep during the day. Your DNA and your physics are not made up like that. You sleep at night and you operate during the day. So you need to try and, customize to that. So the first 36 hours, get as far as possible. Remember, a race village is as good as a water point is as good as a race village. Yeah, there's less of a cooked meal, for argument's sake, but you still get proper meals there. There will be mattresses, if it's late afternoon, you can pull a mattress under a tree and sleep there. But try and ride the first day, the first 36 hours into the next night for the 3 and 4 day riders that needs to sleep. And also remember the adrenaline that builds up in your body. When you ride for too long, you can also get to a point when you try and sleep that you can't fall asleep because of adrenaline. And a simple tip that I want to give you there is, when you get closer, say for argument's sake, you want to sleep at Bridgetown, or you want to sleep at water point 5 or Pompoenpoort water point 6, slow down the last 4 or 5 kilometers when you get closer to the water point. That you can the lactic acids can, go out of your body, that you spin a little bit more, that you just get calmer down. Don't race all the way to get to the water point, jump off a bike and now you think you're going to sleep. The adrenaline is going to pump, your heart is going to pump, you're going to be, like a hyper, bunny, and you're not going to fall asleep. So think about those simple things, just start spinning 5 kilometers before a race village. We put the cue sheets onto your Garmin's. So if you swipe through your Garmin screen, you can see water point 2 is still 70 kilometers away. Now it's 5 kilometers away. Just slow down, get there, have a lekker chow, get on the bike, and then you go again. And when you decide to sleep, just take it easy as you get into the race village as an example. So I think that is basically, some of the tips and the tricks that I just wanted to share with you that I really feel, I've made mistakes and, what I've learned over the years. So, again, not gonna drag this out. So I think if you've got a question, rather just unmute yourself and ask questions. Alex, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to just add from a strategy perspective, etc.
Yeah, just a couple of mental strategies. So one was just around the cut that both of you and Gavin have mentioned. That number is actually under 10 that have been out in the field over 9 years when 120 hours goes off. So people just underestimate the power of spending time in the race, and most riders, as Gavin said, actually cut themselves. And so really strategically, what you want to try and do is think about what it is you need to do and how you need to ride to almost guarantee. And obviously we're speaking to riders here that are trying to just make the cutoff and do the event for the first time. Obviously, if you're on a 3-day strategy or something else, it's different. But if you're a rider that's wanting to make the cut and get to the end, try and think around how you need to ride to almost guarantee that you're still around 100, 110 hours from the start, whatever that looks like. Because if you are, chances are you're going to make it to the end. And so, there's a lot of things that you can do to get to the 100 hours or, the 110 hours. And
Alex, can I just stop you there? So,
Yeah.
so also a thing is be careful of listening to everybody and specifically your family. What happened last year is Vernon Rutman rode with Lisa and he was helping her, and he was way behind the cutoff line on the actual tracking, but he was still way in time for these cutoffs that I've basically sharing with you on screen. So if somebody, don't let anybody, get in your mind. Phone me or Alex and we'll tell you that you're okay. But these are the cutoff times, and this is the only cutoff times that we enforce, okay? So it's 12 o'clock on Thursday, 12 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday at Bridgetown, 12 o'clock on the Saturday at Loxton, 11 o'clock the Sunday morning at Sutherland, 5 p.m. at Dadur, Patstal, and then 7 o'clock Monday morning in Matrisburg. But if you're behind the system, don't worry about it. Just finish the race. You can still finish it, although it looks like you may be behind schedule. Thanks, Alex.
So, yeah, just back to the idea of thinking around what it is you need to do to still be around 100 hours after the start. Because if you are, chances are you're going to finish. And one of the first things, Gavin kind of alluded to it, but he didn't really dig into sort of the nitty-gritty of the 12 p.m. start. What tends to happen is riders get to somewhere around the steel bridge as the sun's setting, and they still 80 kilometers away from race village 1, but they see the sun setting, and in their mind, day 1 is coming to an end, and they haven't even made a dent on getting to RV1. And of course, nothing's further from the truth. Day 1 comes to an end 12 p.m. on Thursday afternoon. And that's actually a surprisingly difficult construct to come to terms with riders that have normal biological rhythms. They go to sleep, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and they wake up at 5, 6 in the morning. And it's a very difficult thing to train. I mean, how many of you actually go out at 12 o'clock on a Saturday morning in the middle of the day and start your 12, 15-hour ride? But it's a great thing to mentally train at least once or twice and get yourself in the frame of mind that when the sun is setting on the Wednesday, you are a quarter of the day into day one, not towards the end of day one. And, you know, you'll be surprised if you take that mental stress off, that actually when you wake up the next day, you're still not even at the end of day one. And so all of a sudden, 120 hours actually seems like a lot of time. And that's the reason why there are few people still in the field when we cut. And really, one of the ways to go about that is to just be conscious around when to, you know, to push a little bit and when to kind of pull back. But, you know, I want to just end with one sort of thought, that it's hard to, whether you're OCD or not, it's hard to look away from the numbers. But it's not the numbers that are calling you to the Karoo. It's not the numbers that are calling you to the Munga. There's no signboards out there that count down, although we've joked about it. You know, you've been called to the Karoo because something is speaking to your soul. You know, maybe the Lord's tugging you to go and end a year in some reflective time, and really that's whether you're racing or not. For the vast majority of you, that's what's going to make this a compelling and leave you something with, you know, that'll be with you for the rest of your life. So just remember, the numbers are great, but at the end of the day, when you're out on that lonely Karoo road, actually the numbers don't really mean much anymore. You know, the road ahead of you, the road behind you, and the road under your tires are kind of what's going to keep you going. Good luck.
Thanks, Alex. Nabil, stop crying about the route. We're talking about it next week in detail. And yes, all the razzle dazzles are in. And yes, the wonderful section of the Fraserburg is in only for you, Nabil, because you begged us to put it in. So we, if anybody wants to thank Alex for bringing the section after Fraserburg in, you can thank Nabil. He begged for that.
You're not allowed to phone Alex during the race to complain about the route.
Yeah.
No, phone Jack. He's the RD this year.
So just one other thing, eh? Regardless about all your training and all the fear of being in the best physical condition, you have to get to the start line healthy. If you can't, so the next few weeks are vital. Don't overtrain. Don't go crazy now because you think you got to train extra. I can almost guarantee you most of the Oaks now will be able to do the Munga tomorrow with their fitness. When you get to that line, you have to be healthy. You can't be sick. That is the biggest thing. Don't go overtrain and get sick and wear yourself down. You've got to be fresh to do this race, because if you're not fresh, it's a short race. Eh?
No, 100%. Okay, so seriously, there's been a few questions just about the GPS file. So the GPX file. So yeah, we will give it a week before the race. The route is finalized. And it's a little bit shorter than last year, but next week we will go into the detail. We'll show you the race. We will go through the briefing document. This is not the purpose of tonight's session, but I think what I just want to add what Gavin is also saying is, you know, if you really not well, you know, we do stupid things as athletes and get into a race, and you know, Hansi Hubert last year wasn't feeling well and he still went and he rode and you know, almost damaged himself just by riding whilst he was sick. So, you know, listen to your bodies and keep yourselves healthy. Use Bactroban in your nose and your mouth if you go out to places, and just really stay healthy. When are the doctor's confirmations due? So the doctor confirmation documents are, you know, to save time with a registration, Lauren. You know, we would like to have it in at least a week before the race start. You know, there's an issue and you bring it along on the day, it's fine. We're just going to have a tick list of everybody that send it. Unfortunately, the profile pictures, that has to be in a week before the time. Otherwise, you will just be, you know, LA or PT or whatever on the tracking system, and there won't be a schmuck photo of yourself. So yeah. Any other questions? How do you know our doctor letters are well received? Johan, so we're not going to send you a confirmation. I mean, if you send it to riderdocs.com, I mean, we keep a spreadsheet up to date. So, we can look at the email box well before, and I can also send out who's we've received and who we hasn't received beforehand, but I'm not going to do it now. I'll just wait for everybody to send it. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, we're gonna close off. Geez, nothing on 3-day strategies and 4-day strategies and anything
You
else.
scared them.
No,
I'm surprised Caroline hasn't had anything to say.
what is your strategy, Caroline? 2.5 days. Natalie, that's actually a penalty for you. You can be glad there's no penalties, Natalie, because those distances are actually in the race briefing document. So if you just look here, I can show you quickly. But it's still a penalty for you, Natalie. So the race distances, we've added it into the document, so you can just go and squiz to the document. We haven't updated it in any way or form. So just wait.
Yeah, and just don't underestimate the distances between the water points. They can take a lot of time.
Yeah, so here it is. So I think that one of the major things, and again, we're going to dig into this next week. I think the two tough ones is from water point 1 to water point from water point 1 to water point 2, 114, 111, whatever the kilometers, and then obviously from it's about 111, 112 kilometers from Sutherland to Dadur. That's a very tough section if you ride it during the day. So yeah, just be really careful of those distances. Okay. Thanks, James. Click me out. Finishing is the strategy. Okay. Yeah, the formulas I will send to you, Natalie. So don't worry about it. I'll just update it and I'll send it out to the whole group. Okay. Any final questions? Gone. So Gavin.
No, me. I was just going to say, because you asked me what my strategy is, I don't really
But
have
you
a
can't
strategy.
lie. It's recorded, Caroline, so you have to tell us honestly.
No, I'm doing 4 days. That's 4 days to 5 days. There's nothing, I'm not in race mode this time around. I'm coming from Norway, so I'm very scared of that heat. Hey, I've acclimatized to Norway here.
No, then you can drag Danny and Gavin along and schlep them through maybe. Looking forward to see you, Caroline.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait. I can't wait to get away from this bloody rain. I promise you.
Oh, that's awesome. No, the weather doesn't look crazy as yet, but we'll find out in the next week or two. It's slowly creeping up. I'm predicting a warm year, but then so everybody on this group and that rides is meteorologists and weather people. But yeah, we'll see closer to the time what is actually happening.
No, that's lekker. And Gavin, thanks so much. You actually answered all my questions, so that's why I didn't ask anything.
Thanks, Caroline. Thanks, Gav, for joining us tonight. Looking forward to see you en route and also suffering with the rest of the people. And yeah, next weekend is important. It's going to be a little bit longer briefing session. We're going to go through this document in detail. You can post your questions on the session, and yeah, have a good evening. We'll have a final race briefing. We're going to have it obviously in Bloemfontein. I think just plan your aeroplane flights and everything. The race briefing in Bloemfontein on the 26th of November is at 4 o'clock. We brought it an hour earlier so that you can go for dinner and everything a little bit earlier. So please plan your flights and arriving in Bloemfontein. Registration closes at at 4 o'clock, and then we moved straight over into the race briefing at 5 to 5:30. And but we will emphasize that and going into the detail next week. So have a good evening, and we'll chat to you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Good luck. Cheers.
Yes, thanks, Gav.
Thanks, guys.
We'll just stop this.
Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Recording stopped.